Everybody's ready when you are, Skip.
Very good. Clerk, you good?
Good.
All right, then let's just call to order the Tuesday, May 16th committee of the whole meeting. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Wright,
Yes.
Sima,
Here.
Block,
Here.
Hetty. Yes. Malaco,
Here.
Babcock.
Yes.
Here.
Move to item 3.1, approval of minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from the May 2nd, 2023 committee of the whole meeting?
So moved.
We have a motion by trustee Petty, second by trustee Wright. Any discussion of the minutes? Clerk, please call the roll.
Sima,
Yes.
Malaco,
Yes.
Block,
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
Babcock,
Yes.
Hetty. Yes.
Item 4, public comment. Is there anyone, no one present here? Is there anyone online still, Joe, that might want to comment?
People, but
I need to log in tonight.
hands up.
We're going to move right into new business then. Item 5.1, discussion and recommendation to the board for award of the 2023 Class D pavement patching contract to Stenstrom Excavating for the appropriated amount of $50,000. If you'd like, we can have Brandon tell you a little bit about the Class D program and how that is structured.
So the Class D patching program is a program. I'm not sure when it was started, maybe 2012-ish, I believe. And we, along with as Department of Public Works, we work together to identify localized failure areas and get a contractor to come in and patch those areas as sort of a Band-Aid to hold those roads together. We held our bid opening for this project last Thursday, May 11th at 10 a.m. here at Village Hall, and had a public opening. We only had 2 bidders, as you'll see in the bid recommendation letter: Stenstrom Excavating and N-Track. And Stenstrom Excavating was the lowest qualified bidder, so that is what we are recommending for approval.
So moved.
Motion to recommend approval by trustee Block,
I'll second that.
second by trustee Wright. Any further questions or discussion? I'll just add that Class D is more than just like a pothole patching. I think Class D is when we're generally removing a very a larger size, sometimes a full lane width, but where they saw cut and do a complete removal and complete repaving. So they are Band-Aids long term for sure, but it's building a new chunk of road.
How do we determine where they go?
These 2 gentlemen.
You guys-
Yep. So, and we also take requests from the public. Honestly, that's where a lot of our locations are figured out from, along with Troy's crew that drive around these roads, daily. They identify some of these locations. Obviously, with a $50,000 budget, we have to, pick and choose which ones are the highest priorities. It's usually dependent on, are they causing damage to tires, things like that. But we try to accommodate everybody's requests and get these areas fixed.
And we'll do it in a couple groupings throughout the course of the summer. Do an initial one where Brandon and Troy will mark out areas on maps and then literally paint it in the field and see how much we spend. I don't know, do half of it up front,
Yeah,
20,
usually.
30,000. And then see what else happens over the course of the year.
Is this usually done by the end of the summer? Or?
Yeah, so we usually like to do one up front right away to address the previous winters, potholes that popped up in larger failure areas. And then we generally try to wait towards the end of the season. As rain events and things like that, potholes get worse. So we try to hit them primarily at the end of the year as well. So late summer, early fall.
There's no further discussion. We have a motion in a second. So clerk, you can call the roll.
Wright,
Yes.
Babcock.
Yes.
Sima,
Yes.
Hetty. Yes. Malaco,
Yes.
Block.
Yes. Motion passes 6-0. Thank you. Old business. Now I have some reports and some updates, and bear with me. I haven't been here much since the last meeting. So some of these are a bit lacking, but I want to go through the subdivision entrance signs. We're sort of approaching, we've decided we want to refresh a lot of our subdivision entrance signs, and we're taking a different approach to different signs. Public Works Department has removed and sort of spruced up and repainted a couple. They did Prairie Ridge and Clearwing signs, which we will be reinstalling and doing some new landscaping in some of those islands, refreshing the landscaping. The signs are gorgeous. They did an amazing job of repainting them. But they were initially installed with sort of the PVC fencing structure, decorative structure around them, which didn't age very well. And so we're looking at, the last piece there is looking at maybe a better, nicer sort of wood trellis structure that could be built around these with the signs mounted in as an entry feature. We've reached out to a vendor who has expertise in this. In fact, this vendor made the sign that hangs behind President Gustafson's desk. And have asked for them to provide a quote for fabricating 3 new Shepherd's Hill signs, 2 new Sagewood signs, and then proposed design and fabrication of 2 new Chicory Ridge signs. I hope to have that back for presentation no later than the June 20th meeting. This vendor is talented and unique, I think, in his ability to make the signs that we're looking for. However, not always the fastest response guy in the world. And then there's a couple, the Deerwood sign, and possibly Promontory, although I want to talk to Mr. Liston, the HOA president, about just having the guys go out and paint. Those are more permanent. Those are signs that are made out of stone and have engraved etchings in them. Certainly in Deerwood, it looks like it was once painted, and you could read the Deerwood, and there's a little logo better. And that is all aged and worn away. You can barely read it. So I want to talk to Public Works about finding the appropriate paint and seeing the work they did on the other ones. I trust John's hand to maybe go out and repaint those. Promontory sign, it also has engraved writing. And I don't know that it was ever painted though. So I just want to talk to their HOA president and see if that's something that is.
I was on their HOA. Do HOA subdivision, so they qualify for this as well, like Hidden Creek Estates would, or Hidden Creek would as well as. So even though they subsidize.
Yeah.
So this.
Absolutely. That is my understanding. I think right now we've opened it up to look at all subdivision entrance signs. Hidden Creeks looks really good right now. It was
Reach for painted them.
what you did?
Yeah,
Oh my goodness.
I was saying it was down.
Yeah.
It's up.
Awesome.
Pay for ours.
Hawk Point.
Yeah, we took a door to door.
And Hawks Point, I can't remember who, but someone from Hawks Point reached out and, was asking if there was any way that sign could be moved out farther, closer to the street. And we advocated for it with the Winnebago County Highway Department, and they just took a firm, absolutely not position. They would not allow it in their right away whatsoever. But that does suffer from some visibility as far as it's set back. But
How about the Roscoe Village sign? We updated that any time. The old one.
a couple we have, and some of the small ones we have not.
It's on my list.
Is that new, would that be new business?
What's old business?
Is it?
Yes, it comes up.
It does. I'm just gonna say,
They're way
they're all-
behind
they're all-
project
they're-
signs.
they're not appealing. I'll be easy. How's that?
Well, that's a whole
Other-
new kettle of fish, really. Yeah,
That's
you know,
what I
what
meant.
we pursue, so a couple of them that have been installed are not that old. Probably 2015 or 16. And yeah, I think opinions vary as to the aesthetic quality. And do we replace other signs? Because there are other minor, what I would call, secondary or tertiary entrance signs into the village that we could either update in that same mode
I think.
or reinvent or go back to the drawing board.
Go back to the land use plan. You come up with land use plan, but then you have to have a
Branding.
reinvention, a rebranding of the village sign to say, let's make, Roscoe's #1 in Illinois. And then you can have in small writing, according to us. That's how we make it that way. I think it's.
We were top
brand.
brand, this is raising family.
On top of the state.
Top of the state.
Top of the state.
I'm gonna come back to that.
But I mean, we should consider that with the land use and just a rebranding so that it all ties together.
Design professionals will call that an identity development.
Yep.
Come up with a new
Brand
identity.
identity.
Yeah.
There are 57 varieties of sign around.
Now.
So it would be
Yeah.
nice. to
Right.
have some.
Right.
Have a continuity.
that are not.
But all the Danica
Updated.
Patrick ones disappeared a long time ago.
No, I'm sure we have a list. I'm not exactly sure.
I mean, that's one
If
of
we
the
don't
things.
have a
that-
list, could we have a
Cities
list
that
maybe
do
by
that.
the end of the year so we can budget to.
Of our
next year?
signs?
Yes,
where they're located.
Yeah, so we know which ones need to be replaced and we can budget for it and maybe tackle it next year.
And just that brand identity, then it was cohesive across the village. Everything you do kind of fits that brand. People start to get familiar with it.
It's a whole other discussion.
I support the idea. I'll tell you that much. I'm all for it. We need still to solicit updated quotes for the repairs at the log cabin. And I'll take responsibility for that, not having happened yet. We have two different quotes that were wildly different, and this is something that is a unique and specialized trade, as you can imagine. And what we want to do is combine, make a new request. Troy has already done a good share of the heavy lifting on that already. And we just need to finalize that and send it out to, again, the two that submitted and any other log cabin repair specialists that we might be able
What
to
is
find.
the log cabin?
Oh, that is, I'm sorry, it's the cabin in Porter Park. It's the Porter Park cabin. It is a village owned property. It is a true log cabin, but it has not had any significant repair to it in quite a long time. And there is rotted logs that need to be replaced. The corners have tension rods that need to be adjusted to tighten and level everything out. And the ceiling is a drywalled ceiling, which we've since learned is ill-advised in a log cabin because there is movement, so it's all cracked and bad. It needs to be stripped and resealed, even the good logs. Probably replace the ceiling with a tongue and groove ceiling. So we're sort of making a master list of requested improvements. So that we sort of cobbled together from what these couple of vendors looked at and suggested. They both saw some stuff that the other one didn't see. We've also talked about making the upper loft more ADA accessible, which it is not currently. And did some at the budget time last year, did some initial look at building a traditional elevator structure, which was insanely expensive. But Trustee Plockett sent along a link to just some cool vertical lifts that work in commercial residential applications. There's a local company, Mobility Connection, and I've talked to them about coming out. They recommend a product called a VPL 3100. It can do up to 147-inch vertical lift, which I think will cover that. Confirm. They're going to come out and take a look. We spoke before I left on vacation. They were busy. I was leaving. So they want to come out and take a look. They think that the product is somewhere in the $13,000 range, which is suspiciously inexpensive to me, but I like the sound of that. But that, of course, is an installation or modification to the existing structure. So we'll look at what that looks like, I guess, and what kind of square footage that takes up. This lift would not replace the stairs. Therein lies the difference between an elevator and a lift. We talked possibly about removing the stairs, putting like a true elevator in. That would maybe not only make the upper level accessible, but regain some usable square footage on the floor because the big wooden staircase does take up a lot of room and divides the space. But that is a sizable modification to the building, taking that staircase out. So we want to explore this lift option first and bring it back to you for review.
I think we should closely look at that whole thing out there with the path coming out there by 2024, that path extending all the way
The
out.
parallel path extension. Yeah.
It's not gonna start and end there,
It's gonna go right,
right up to it.
now that we have that piece, the other side, that path is
It's gonna
running
be a big
right
area.
next to it. The timing couldn't be better.
Yeah,
This is amazing. We
that's-
get that land and now the path is gonna be
Right there.
adjacent to it.
Yep. It's gonna be a big.
Scott, if I may, going back to the cabin, in touring it last Friday with Troy, I'd also like to add to your wish list, getting someone to quote new lighting.
Okay.
For that. I'm sure there are a lot better ways,
Interior,
interior lighting
you got it.
that can be accomplished there,
And actually,
and exterior.
I'm sorry.
I just want to update that combination of the two quotes. I did send that out Monday
Good, thank you.
and I talked to one of them that, I just said it's not like a final thing. I just trying to compare more apples to apples with the two quotes. And one of them got back to me already today saying that they'll have it by the end of the week.
Oh, great.
Hopefully the other vendor.
Thank you.
gets the other one.
The other thing on Porter Park is that Mark Bozen and the Porter Park Disc Golf Association are chomping at the bit to carve a few holes through the newly acquired land. In fact, they've been out doing some light pruning already and clearing some spaces. They like the perimeter. They like to play through obstacles through the woods. We talked about that being in the scope of improvements at budget time. And he has prepared and sent me a quote to purchase 9 new baskets, goals. It comes at just over $5,000, and that will segue into our procurement policy talk here in a minute. But I just got that quote while I was gone, and I think it's a nice first step towards. I'm gonna go out and meet with him on site, see what.
These are.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Oh, they're more than that.
It is
They're more
a,
than that.
it is a
It's cool.
Mhm.
significantly utilized resource in the village
Out there all the time.
all the time. And they are good stewards. They've done a lot of work themselves. They put in a lot of sweat equity. They have bought their own baskets in the past at times, but we did talk to them about incorporating some additional holes. And would like to participate with them in advance of it.
I also met with him on Friday, so he gave me a tour of some of the areas, and yes, the amount of sweat equity they put in there is remarkable. And they have a tournament planned for July.
Yep, beautiful.
Yes, so we anticipate several hundred people.
They bring in professionals for those. Like there's professional disc golfers, they bring in.
Yes.
I'll be curious if we go out, you'll join me, of course, but I wonder if maybe some of the paths or fairway areas or something might be a place for some of the above ground mulch.
Yeah, that's one of the things I was thinking of.
I did,
Couple-
excuse me. I did ask him how he felt about mulch. Wasn't too thrilled about mulch being there in the basket area for whatever reason.
Yeah, I was thinking about the basket
I don't
area.
know.
Not the basket area. I know there's one, I think it's like the whole 5A and B, which is on the north side of like the little creek that goes back into the woods where it goes down. It's always muddy in there.
Oh,
I was thinking like an area in there.
Yeah.
but when I brought up mulch, he was not really enthusiastic about it, but you can probe, but what he was enthusiastic about is a bridge.
Mhm.
Spans the water there, something like Aldine. The list goes on.
I'm all for it.
It'd be really
We have started mowing that other. Very nice.
Awesome. And I do not have a Chicory Ridge lighting update. I tried calling. I just don't have it. Tried reaching out right before I left. I tried reaching out again today. I had to leave a message. I've not heard back. I
Do we
apologize.
have any plans for the parking lot? For the Ford Park expansion?
Nothing concrete, no pun intended yet.
Can we start that process?
Yeah.
If we're gonna have the Halloween thing, it'd be nice to maybe have that done.
Or a tournament.
Or the tournament, but the tournament, it probably won't happen.
Not by July, probably.
No.
That's a conversation for us in staff meeting tomorrow. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you that will require a closer look than what we appropriated. I think money right now appropriated for park improvements probably wouldn't cover the parking lot. We did those based upon an early concept drawing that had a smaller lot that would access a dog park and some other stuff on the other side of McDonald there in this new triangle. And it really was during the midst of our budget talks and after those costs had been initially prepared, that we held the Halloween event and we mowed down a large area where we could park with another 75 cars or something on the other side. A nice double parked parking lot, just mowed down grass, and it was packed full. I think that opened our eyes as to the need of parking out there and revisit a larger lot. So maybe overall, with the full scope of things that we planned on, maybe the appropriation number still fits. Or was allocated towards the parking, or we can.
Is there any way you can solicit, make this a private enterprise contribution to the village of, some of these things would be in interest of improving the village as a whole. So going to chambers, making a contribution. Let's get more of the community involved, say, hey, village would like to do this, for lack of funds, let's raise some extra money. Like, a lot of these roofing companies around here, it seems like they got a lot of opportunity, but is there a way, Joe, to combine this with raising money with the communities to help develop this, because the village, might not have enough funds to do that?
I don't know, discussing and figure out what you want, what direction I go with that, but yeah, absolutely. We don't have a foundation ourselves set up, so we can certainly do that. I would recommend doing something along those, if we're gonna do it to us, several foundations separately. Otherwise chamber or there's other organizations. that
We should
can-
go talk to them first, like, hey, we want to do this and see what they, because I think a lot of business would be, it's good marketing for them. You look at the awards that were handed out at the chamber event, a lot of companies did a lot of, good things, and were to leverage a relationship with the village and the chamber, and these raise money, they would be all for it, because you're attracting more people, more businesses, and community involvement. So is that an agenda for your staff meeting or Scott's?
We'll discuss it.
Unfortunately, it's just like Winston, I'll tell you. The chamber itself doesn't have any money,
No,
no. But they have members, so the value is the conduit.
To the business, right?
right.
We've used that for like the parades, we
It's
have.
not sponsored.
The Lions Club, for example, VFW, I mean, a lot of these things, they benefit the community, but, one, we need to try it. We need to get a lot more community involvement. We need to be individuals involved. That's the whole goal. Well, here's a way to do it. Start publicizing, making these things. If we come up with a land use plan of what we're gonna do, once we're ready to publicize, we get a lot more people involved and make it exciting. And I'm not kidding about, right now, if you look at Illinois, Roscoe ranks, according to a statistic, 84 of places to live and out of 320. That's pretty good, but we should be focused on how do we make it number one? And I wasn't kidding about it. You put that on the sign, you put in the small print, according to us right now, but that is the goal. But then you're gonna get people a lot more excited, the business more excited, and that's what you're gonna have to create the momentum, not just us having a discussion here, but this is where it starts.
Getting people to part with their dollars has always been a challenge here. Sponsorship.
Well, that's maybe we haven't done a good job.
On a large scale. I'm not making an excuse.
Yes.
There has to be a plan to do that.
Exactly. And that's what starts with this discussion.
Are we members of Elevate 815 and the chamber? We are not, are we?
No, municipalities aren't members. I'm an ex officio board member. But it is made up of businesses, not municipalities. So I attend meetings.
Mike Wright
To me,
is the
we
conduit
used
to
to
all
pay for
of
memberships.
I
For
do
some
a rock
things,
for
not a
that.
chamber, we did some of the other.
RABC.
Yeah,
But we
CDB.
didn't for the Stalen Chamber
no.
or Elevate
We've
815?
donated to them before, but we've not.
Okay. Okay, and it's interesting you bring this up, this marketing. You brought up top of the state.
We own that website.
Yeah.
The domain
No,
release.
they-
Roscoe Village owns it.
Yes.
Village of Roscoe owns it, correct?
And today I saw an ad on TV. It was Illinois. An ad for Illinois in the middle of the country. Illinois in the middle. I don't know, just thinking about playing off.
Yeah, no.
things.
I mean, those are the things you have to talk about, because the way you raise money is you have to do marketing, but you got to do a plan first before you have something to market. And the planning is always the most difficult. One, you have to have a vision, and you have a vision, create that vision with this board. So 4 years from now, we have a reason to say, here's what we did. But I was serious about Mike Wright. I mean, he's got a conduit to both Elevate and the chamber. I mean, that's how I met a lot of these people. Is you just hang around with Mike, he knows everybody.
Well, we can all increase our presence, right? I mean, we all were stewards of
Exactly.
the village, so.
I'm gonna move into item 7, presentation 7.1. This will be brief, but this is just a little, this is continuing in the series, the committee of the wholes. just giving a little information, a little background information. I want to talk about our procurement policies and procedures. And this is how we go about buying things, right, at the Village of Roscoe, or even engaging in contracts for services. We have a few different thresholds, up to $5,000, $5,000 to $20,000, or $19,999, and then $20,000 and above. Up to $5,000, there is discretionary authority for President Gustafson or myself to just authorize a purchase. Chief of Police, Director of Public Works also have discretionary authority up to $2,500. But since we moved into a purchase order policy, maybe 6 or 7 years ago, more often than not, it's probably me or President Gustafson's going to be signing the POs anyway, so their purchasing authority doesn't come into play quite as often. But what that means is that President Gustafson or I or other department heads can authorize purchases up to those dollar amounts if they're things that have been discussed and included during budget time. It's not just random off the cuff purchases of, hey, let's go buy this new vacuum cleaner for, widget for whatever. If it aligns with an item that's been discussed and generally appropriated for at budget time, up to $5,000, that can just be signed off on. From 5 to 10 to 20,000, we're required to solicit quotes. And that means we can just go to some specific vendors that we know are qualified or have a history with and get some quotes to do that work. We don't always get 3. There's not always 3 people that want a quote on it. Sometimes it's a very specialized trade that only a few people might be able to submit a price on. But we do our best, and there's also federal or national, I should say. Joe correct me. I said federal in the past too. National procurement programs that we sometimes avail ourselves of because they've already done public bidding of certain scopes of materials and services. There's one. The main one is called Sourcewell. Sourcewell is Minnesota.
Run by the state of Minnesota. Yeah.
It's run by the state of Minnesota, but it collects bidding on a comprehensive scale for regions around the country in such a way that it satisfies the solicitation of quotes and bids and establishes low prices for a lot of things.
It's like an approved purchasing organization.
Exactly right.
Yeah, municipal based. So it meets all of our municipal requirements.
And when we get to $20,000 and above, that's when by ordinance, go through a public bidding process. That's when we advertise something in the newspaper. Solicit, we still will often send them to known entities or invited bidders, but we publicly advertise it so that anyone can make themselves aware. And those are advertised not only in newspapers, but in trade publications. Fairground assists us with putting it on websites. And of course, it's on our own website. But what's one?
Quest CDN is the website. It's a contractor-based website where when you post a project, there's certain categories that you can list it as, and contractors who have a subscription, which is a lot of them, basically get a notification saying that there's an active project going on under that category.
For those, we have a public bid opening, and then the board collectively awards that. When it reaches that threshold, there's many steps in it. There's usually, there's always a discussion of that item at budget time. Anything certainly at that level will have been discussed and the dollar amount appropriated for budget time. So it's discussed publicly at many meetings during the budget process. Then this board reviews and approves the issuance of the construction and bid documents. So the board takes a vote even to authorize sending it out for bids. Then once we get the bids back, the board once again reviews the bid tabulation, just like we did on the Class D paving patching. And Fairground generally will be the ones that are reviewing the bids and making a recommendation to move forward with the lowest responsible bidder. A few unique variations to that, and we're going to get it when we do the comprehensive planning, is a state regulation called QBS, qualifications-based selection. For planning, architecture, engineering, and surveying, for those disciplines, we are not allowed to issue based upon a fee proposal. We're supposed to award those services based on the most qualified person to do the work. So we solicit statements of qualifications. It's an SOQ or RFQ, request for qualifications, as opposed to an RFP, request for proposals. Proposal will have a fee associated with it. And the way we move forward, then we have to evaluate the submittals and rank them. And it's important, if you have more than 3, it's important that you rank 1, 2, and 3. Because once you've done that, you enter into a fee negotiation with the first ranked vendor. If you're just so far apart that you can't get to an agreeable fee, you can go to number 2 and negotiate with them. You can go to number 3 if you have to. But you can't go beyond that. If you can't, if you're so far apart on fee, if you misunderstood, the value of that service by the third vendor, you have to go through the process all over again with a new scope.
That was the process used for the PD.
It exactly was. Yes, that's exactly what we did for the PD.
And
It's
then
a
you
statement of qualifications and and then negotiate. It's what we even did when we redesigned Plat 1 of Chicory Ridge. We had an engineer redesign that to bring it up to current standards. I'm going to go down that rabbit hole right now, but we received 4 different proposals, and we don't even know what the other 3 vendors would have charged. We reached an acceptable number with the first one. And that's the way it goes. So I'd be happy to entertain any questions you might have.
So this whole discussion, I'm waiting for, is there a question at the end of this or is it for our edification?
Oh, darn.
It's a series of presentations, just to sort of bring everybody and.
I think my understanding is, President Guston, correct me, I think that because you'll see we have the committee discussion again next. I think that the idea might be that we initially present some information to you, let you chew on it,
Perfect. Yeah.
digest it, and then it's almost as if it maybe appears for presentation on one agenda and then discussion at the next meeting. And if you have thoughts suggestions, changes, additions,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Okay.
No, this is very.
But I certainly take any questions you have right now. That's
No. I just wanted to.
Yeah.
No, I think it's a good idea.
I made a reference to a purchase order. We didn't, that's something new we rolled out probably in 2017 or so, I think. And every purchase we have that's $500 or more has to be accompanied by a purchase order. So those are prepared by the various departments, either prepared here, Village Hall administrative side, police side, public works side. And then those are all brought to generally me for my signature. They'll be signed first by the department head and then signed by me, and those are tracked at audit time. That's the reason I said that even though department heads have authority for 2,500, more often than not, if it's over 500, it requires a purchase order anyway. So they generally come to me for signature.
If I may.
Mhm.
William, the intent here was to just give a general view of some of the topics that come up all the time.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And a general understanding. So coming attractions, 2 weeks from now will be liquor commission information because the entire board sits as the liquor commission. And at that time, we'll review where or who has a liquor license, the different types of liquor licenses that are out there, the fees. And there are some questions that you may have about, for example, have we reached the saturation point with establishments? Or I think it would also be interesting to see a map of where these things are.
It will be like approving.
No, it's
Like
just
rules?
for your edification.
Gotcha.
Yes, it's just to understand what your role is as a liquor commissioner.
Yeah, no,
It's a
no.
tutorial.
Oh, that's the exact point, is to explain to you your roles and responsibilities in this process.
But I just, may I say something? I'm a big proponent of continuing education, and it's very helpful for new trustees.
Sure.
But it's also helpful for people that are sitting in the audience or people who are listening here, people that have questions about liquor board. I would propose that you keep this as a series, maybe on YouTube or something where we could tab it out so the public can access and say, hey, here's Scott Sanders, 411 on the liquor
Procurement.
license or something. I think it's a wonderful resource because the way you're explaining it makes sense. My only thought, as you're saying, is that I wish more people were here
Yeah.
that could hear this, or if people need that resource. People don't learn by going through, codes, going through ordinances and things like that. They go through by people talking and listening and communicating with them. So I would propose that we capture this, we have this, you know, because it's gonna go and it's gonna evaporate. It's out of
Yeah.
but we should have it somewhere where we can have building it into the new website or the link or something like that. Where we have these topics where people can do it. So somebody's gonna come to talk to the liquor commission, they can find out about this. Somebody wants to propose something or bid on something, they have these resources. Now things are done here in Roscoe, because we're drinking through a fire hose, we're new, right? And this is very helpful. I think that we should really keep it going, keep this dialogue going.
And I would second that taking that, and that's a reason for the community to come to these meetings more often is if there's, you know, hey, tonight there's gonna be a tutorial on XYZ instead of us just showing up when we have an issue, which is what
We
happened.
could advertise, right?
You know, all the meetings are recorded and should be on the website and will be.
Should be, but they're not. because
Well,
I've looked-
not only that, there's something about being recorded, but there's something about, you know, like
Make it
online learning, right?
Yeah, make
Online
it a
learning,
tutorial.
being able to have something, something of value that draws somebody to the village website. Something that people can look at if they have questions. If they're sitting in here, have a question in public comment, we can refer them to this, you know, visual resource.
Give them a reason to be in.
What I wanted to say was, we record the meetings. I wonder, but I'm gonna ask Joe, because he's the most technically capable person in our building right now. Is there a way to like bookmark or chapter, like this portion of it, like this?
Oh, yeah.
Tutorial.
That's what I was getting at.
So that someone could just scroll, so sure, anyone could go watch any entire meeting if they want, but also you can go over and just watch a series of.
Yeah, you could cut these out, make them individual pieces of, you know, the whole recording. These.
Yeah, there you go.
So continue to dress nice. Bruce.
And Joe, you can capture this meeting on YouTube, am I correct?
Yes.
Yes,
Can you make sure the meetings from the past month and a half get uploaded?
this project Janelle will be working on, so absolutely.
Thank you.
People aren't gonna scroll through all these to find a section on what the liquor commissions.
It's like, it's part of it's a personnel, you know, staffing issue, but I mean, there's definitely places that I go through and will tab out different topics, right, different topics, and it's just how much staff time and resources we have and how much we're gonna
Big
put
office
into it.
back there.
I think absolutely, I think taking the, I mean, these are easy enough to do just individual ones.
I read a great quote at the end of some packet. It was like, I don't know, it was like a board initiation packet or something from some other community. And the little tab at the end about the staff was, remember, the staff can do anything. They just can't do everything. Sometimes it just takes a little time finding the right people to be able to do the right thing. So I did put our entire financial policies, which is a fairly sizable document, into the board packet now. So that's what I talked about was procurement, but there's a lot of auditing and financial record keeping and you know, additional financial information that's in your board packet. And we'll put this on again for discussion next time if there's any follow-up questions. And that moves into discussion of the ordinance governing creation, purpose, membership, and rules of procedure, committee of the whole. We talked about committee of the whole last meeting. Everyone has the ordinance and the rules that govern it, and we'll revisit it now and if people have more specific thoughts or questions or comments about it.
I'd like for us to change the voting on it every 2 years to just making it the village administrator from here on out until, I mean, the board can always decide to change it later on.
I think structurally, you're better off having that. You don't know what's going to happen. You know, he could leave, he could whatever, and you can vote on it, but I think structurally to have some type of structure and process in place for, you know, future boards, right? To be able to have that autonomy to do that. I'm happy with the way things are here now. We're all happy with the way things are now. But, you know, I think that to keep it at the same, it's easier just to have that predictability.
Right, that's why I said village administrator, not.
I just think it's funny that.
So, I mean,
at that point, it's someone who like.
So,
Well, I'm saying though.
but this meeting though, it's our meeting, right? It's the trustees meeting,
Right.
essentially, the committee of the whole. So you want somebody like the village administrator that has all of the information that's being presented to us, you know, versus somebody that doesn't. I mean,
My sense of predictability is saying the vote is predictable, right? You vote, it's, you know, if you're happy with what way people are doing things and everything is fine, that's great. Listen, just locking ourselves into something, it doesn't make sense for So my form of predictability is long-term predictability is with Administrator Sanders, working with them, but keeping the structure the same. That's what I'm saying.
Right. Well, what I'm getting at with it is that we haven't voted on this for many years, right?
Right.
Yes.
Right.
So
Right.
if we're
There
not
was-
voting on it and we're not doing the policy of voting on it every 2 years, why wouldn't we just make the village administrator that? And if a board chose to further on, you could change it at any time, right? So if you came in and you didn't like that person.
Are we gonna vote on
But my thing is, right, you have new board members come in, right? You don't know how everything works. You don't know, I mean. That you would have to sit here and actually go through it to see if you wanted that person or not, right? But. Per the arrangement of the policy or whatever, you're supposed to vote on it as soon as you get into office. It's every 2 years. So, I mean, you're just agreeing to something that you don't know if you should agree to. Right?
That's true.
So that's my, I think the language just needs to be cleaned up is all it is for me, I guess, but.
Do you recall, Carol, was Patrick actually voted in to be the chair
Yes.
at the start, perhaps?
Yes, and the ordinance was written specifically because of who the village president was at that particular
No.
time. And the domination of the whole
Yeah.
governance
Yeah.
system.
That's my point.
So,
There's checks and
so
balances.
therefore, when we embarked on getting a village administrator, that then became one of his tasks. And what he said was that it was unusual to have a non-elected person as a chair of a committee. And so he reluctantly did it
I know.
because the trustees didn't have the resources at that time. We didn't have the ability to do minutes because staff were not going to help or put out agendas and that kind of thing. So as it evolved, I think it evolved into a successful practice, having the village administrator as chair and just approving every 2 years who that person is. You may or you may not have 3 new people. You may have only 1 person every 2 years. So you may have 5 people who have experience. And just as we've done here, you delayed the decision until you have a chance to see how the system works and can form an opinion. So I'm of the frame of mind, and it's just my opinion, voting on it every 2 years or ratifying, at least everyone agrees as to what the process will be or honors the process and agrees on who the chair will be.
So do we need to make this in the form of a new ordinance?
No, the ordinance says that every 2 years you will
Okay.
select
All right.
who your chair would be. So I would think it's just nominating who your chair is going to be, somebody seconding it, vote on it, boom, you got your chair.
I like how it works. I especially like having you guys speak up and empower you and give us your ideas and notes, things of that nature. I think it's pretty cool.
I'm okay with the 2-year thing. I just, to me, if it's always been that way and we're not voting on it, it's just, to me, it's a language thing that should be cleaned up, but. If we're going to keep it that way, then we should practice it and do it.
If I may, I think the only reason was just simply choosing not to do it every 2 years.
Right.
No one took the initiative to say, oh, let's officially reappoint the chair. For whatever reason.
I see it says should the chair be absent from any particular meeting, the members of the committee nominate and select a temporary chair
Yes.
to act. And I suppose the same thing would happen if there was ever the absence of the chair. I tell you, we came close tonight. We came close tonight to need the
So
temporary chair.
do we want to put this on the agenda for the next time?
Honestly, I think you can, if you wanted to tonight, you could just vote and select your own chairman and say, yeah, this is new chairman, and then.
This is how you run.
It's not,
You know,
it's
like
not
that.
like village action to the public.
Yeah.
It's not an ordinance or a resolution.
It's
It's
just
just.
how you-
Are you just looking for a motion?
Yeah, motion to appoint administrator as the chair of the committee of the whole.
So is there a motion?
There is a motion. I make the motion.
I'll second the motion.
A motion by trustee Petty, a second by trustee Wright. And this is to appoint the village administrator to the
Let's say appoint
Chair-
you.
The current village
Current
administrator.
administrator.
Well,
For a term of 2 years.
Right.
Any further discussion? We have a motion, a second, any further discussion? I think we'll call the roll,
Okay. Babcock.
right? I mean, can we call a roll on it? Or just like? I don't know.
Yeah, might as well call roll.
Okay.
Can you call me last?
No.
Okay.
Babcock.
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
Sima,
Yes.
Flock,
yes.
Petty. Yes. Malco.
Yes.
Thank you.
We have an official chair for the first time in a while.
There you go.
A
Congratulations.
majority.
Any other thoughts or concerns or questions about the structure of the committee of the whole or?
Question that I would like to pose to everyone. We're trying to roll out agendas and get documents so everyone has enough time staff has enough time to research and board members have enough time to respond and read and ask questions if they need be. So with the committee of the whole, your thought here, if a member here has a request for the committee of the whole, would you be comfortable with making that suggestion 48 hours? The goal is to have a draft of an agenda out on Wednesday. Would you be comfortable with making your suggestions for inclusion of items on the committee of the whole on a Monday, which gives staff 48 hours to put together packets or answer questions or do the necessary research so that when the draft goes out on Wednesday, you have the documents to read?
I will just say that is presuming it's a request that can be addressed in 48
Well,
hours.
that's-
It might be like,
But it
yes,
might,
that's a good one. Give me 2 weeks.
yeah, it might be something that takes.
I would prefer to have, yes, that Wednesday cut off if we could.
Yeah.
Myself, I'm sure Scott and.
Can we make it 2 weeks? Is there an issue with doing longer? I mean, because I asked for these 3 things under old business and half of them didn't have an answer still. And I did that over 2 weeks ago.
So it
But he
can-
was gone, I mean, on vacation, so I mean, I understand.
So it can be whatever you want, just as long as there's enough time for people to put
So you want a
together.
deadline before it
but-
goes into the next meeting, is what you're asking.
Yes,
So I guess my second to that would be 2 weeks instead of 48 hours.
so you would have your request 2 weeks prior to.
Right.
So if you want something in July, you'll have it.
Right, so if I want something in June, whatever our first meeting is June is, I had to ask for it right now.
I guess it's,
So it gives them.
The
2 weeks
longer,
to put it
longer is
together.
better.
Right, so it gives them
Longer is
2
better.
weeks to put it together
Mhm.
and you'll actually get, valid information.
I guess what we'd also say is that in a request for an agenda item on the committee of the whole would not be for the upcoming, the immediate next
No.
committee, but
I guess, yeah, the following meeting. So you're not worried about.
unless we can accommodate it. I guess.
So for us newbies, that not been here, you said you waited a while. How long, do people always pop these on you at the last minute, or has it traditionally been, is there, I'm just trying to get an idea of like what has happened in the past and what the.
I'll tell you what, the truth is, most of the agenda items are internally generated. Get some requests from trustees from time to time.
Okay.
And depending on what, sometimes they're a quick update that I should be able to jump on and get updated information. Sometimes they're a much larger request that's going to take some effort, maybe from many staff members. What I like though is that these are requests to go to the committee of the whole, right? And something doesn't have to necessarily be entirely fully fleshed out at the committee of the whole. We want to be responsible. We don't want to present half-baked information, but it's not rushing it to something that's any kind of final action. So we can sometimes bring something to committee for the purpose of, and you'll see we're specific with our wording on the agenda. Often it says discussion and recommendation to the board because we're saying we think you have enough information. Let's make a recommendation to yourselves as the board to act on this. Sometimes we just say discussion, like we need to talk about this. And we might need to talk about it a bunch of times. So,
There's nothing wrong with you as the committee in this situation, not to forward things to the board.
yeah,
Have that discussion, if you need more information, get that. Allow, tell us we want more information, we want time to look at this. Don't just think you have to push it to the board, because it does happen sometimes. And I mean, to the point where maybe things get passed, maybe shouldn't be, or not ready, or not fully sort of fleshed out, so nobody's, it's your board, your committee, so if you don't have information or you want to talk more about it or get more information, absolutely tell us that. And don't necessarily just rush something to the board just to do it. We'll tell you sometimes that we need to stay with the board, or we'll put it on straight onto the board and we'll say, yeah, can we please, waive the rule? And that happens occasionally. Some things really do need to be approved and we'll ask you for that. But generally, I said the committee, discuss it. Tell us what you want. Sometimes it's us trying to figure out what you want.
Absolutely.
So we can craft it. We'll give you some options. We have recommendations. So sometimes you'll see multiple options on ordinances. Talk about it. Tell
So
us what you want.
Justin, could you just share the example of the three that you had, so I get an idea,
That's
like,
under old business here, the subdivision entrance fence. I mean, it was just getting an update because these are projects that have been long going, right? The park lighting has been over a year now.
okay, so you said that, and then that would be put on the agenda? That's what it
Yes,
is.
you can email.
It's a nice way to
Like,
nudge it along.
Yeah, no, I just want to get an
Any-
example because to see how
Those
this
that's
actually.
what they're doing.
Any board member can ask for something to come here. You either email Scott, you can email the president, and then they make sure it gets put on the agenda.
It was done at our last meeting, there was a request to put an item on the agenda. That came to the trustee and went right to the agenda.
So I'm interested in this because what's the process for us to advance this idea, creating Roscoe as a destination? If we have an idea, is that something we just discuss here? We make a motion on, or we say, let's put it on the agenda?
I don't have a short answer for that, William. I just don't. I mean, that's a big concept right now, and it's wonderful. And then I like every bit of it. I think now we sort of figure, okay, how do we synthesize that down a little
One
bit?
thing is I asked
So
you
it
back
becomes an
there,
action item.
what is this? Is this the time we ask, what's the status of the land use thing that was approved to go out and solicit bid?
I thought that was, I asked earlier, we're gonna send both of those out for the requests. This
Okay,
week.
so they haven't been sent out yet for companies. Are those easy to find, those companies that do that?
Land use probably, right? I mean,
I know
there's
they're
some
sure.
major firms, yeah, and we can hand you too. Yeah, there's some major companies that focus on this.
I come out, my background, I come out of site design and land use planning background by education and profession before this position. I started as our zoning administrator and then transitioned to the position of village administrator as well. So it just so happens that it's an industry I'm pretty familiar with and know some of the industry leaders.
My concept of this is developing a vision for Roscoe. Is that what the land use comes back with, is like, here's your land, here's what we recommend based on the population, the crime, I mean, all these things, bike trails, all that. Is that what's inclusive in that?
Not typically,
Okay.
but that's not to say that with the right vendor, if that becomes
Because
part of the.
under your brand
I'm talking
identity.
More about.
Okay, here's your brand identity, here's where you want to go, so here's your mission statement, here's your vision, and then here's the plan to get there. So that's what I'm looking for, and you're using this land use, so I'm not sure if that fits
I
that.
don't know if it does either. That feels like more of a marketing effort, right? That there are creative teams and brand development, identity development firms that specialize in that. They're not going to be land use planners. Right? Those are two separate disciplines.
So tell me then, when you say a land use plan, what exactly you're gonna get back from these people?
It's a statutory thing, so it's set by statute, right? We require to have that. Every municipality has a land use plan, comprehensive land use plans.
Got it, I just
What do
want
you
to know,
think about
what
it?
is it?
It is in a very basic, it's a document that says, here's where we should have retail, here's where we believe we should have
Okay,
residential, here's where we should have.
Start to the comprehensive
That's what it is.
inventory and analysis.
okay, so for example, and this is our discussion, so for example, say you acquire contiguous land on Main Street. Is that gonna come back, say, okay, for example, you could have high value condominiums over the top of retail? space?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yes, yes. That's the level of detailed recommendation you could expect.
And a lot of that is gonna be direction from the village board,
and then you,
direction from the public.
and then you could have demo of white townhouses across from the village hall?
We can do that right now.
I guess going back to what President Gustafson was saying though, instead of maybe just making a deadline, maybe everybody just agreeing to, if it's not on the very next agenda, it will be on the following.
Yeah.
Would probably be easier for them, because they might be able to squeeze it into the one. Currently, if it's something needed, but. That's how I've always been. I've had many things not pop up on
And President Gustafson has shifted us back. We used to post everything on Friday. Now we're gonna, a draft agenda, definitely mark a draft on Wednesday. Thursdays will be our posting date. So Thursdays will be when they're officially uploaded, posted up front, and supporting documentation put in your board packets. Then you have Friday, the weekend, Monday.
On the village website too, right, for public.
Correct.
And
Does the village currently have a mission statement?
Yes,
Where's it?
I'll get it to you. Seriously.
Okay, I'm just asking the question.
There was one.
Is there a vision statement?
Those are different.
They're different.
They are, we do have both. I don't know, they are currently. I know we did both of those.
Okay.
And
We
then
did.
below that, you'd have a strategic plan, which the land use would be part of that.
No,
Well,
Sorry.
we had what was her name? Barretto?
Denise,
Barretto.
but he just intertwined strategic with the comprehensive.
They are different things.
They are
So
different.
this board did once upon a time have a strategic plan. Things that we wanted to accomplish. And we, for example, it was rebuild the police department. It was hire a village administrator where there hadn't been one. It was build out infrastructure at Willowbrook and Rockton. Those things were part of our strategic plan that was formed, let's say, 8 years ago.
So
And
it's-
they were accomplished. And when we brought Denise Barretto back a second time and she looked at what we accomplished, she said, never been to a village that actually.
who's
had-"
Denise?
She was a facilitator for our strategic plan. Now, that was different from the comprehensive plan. You're referring to. The comprehensive plan dates to 2008, which we're trying to locate.
Yeah. So I'm just saying that here's the things that we ought to revisit. Have a mission statement, a vision statement, strategic plan, part of the comprehensive, and then that tells you the tactical thing, which makes it easier for all of us to make decisions, yes or no, because it's gonna fit into that. If you do that homework up front, you can have 6-0 agreement on everything because everybody has agreed to, here's the direction we want to go. Instead of having tactical things happen that come up and say, oh, let's vote on it, but does it fit into that?
Can I make a suggestion to you? Why don't you
Absolutely.
set up a meeting with the president and village administrator? You clearly have a background in this. You're very passionate about it. And maybe just talk it through with them and then they can bring it back to us.
Do we need a motion?
No.
No, you can just set up a meeting and talk.
Well, I put a call to Carolyn, and we got a call back, so I thought we.
We never stopped talking.
And the sooner you learn that, the better.
All right, thank you. I think that's good.
I have one more thing.
Okay,
Has anything been done with the board meeting packets going online?
It's part of that website. That's why I looked separate.
So you're moving.
It's part of that, yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure it's moving forward.
yes.
And
So the plus is big about it.
to clarify, those were after we had used them, correct?
It was after they went through committee of the whole, so once they were approved and went to the village, or they're going to the village board, then they would be uploaded. Because at committee, obviously, things change and stuff, so we don't want, information going out there and somebody's like, well, this is $57,000, and then we come back and it's only $32,000.
So there's,
Sometimes there are little
Yeah,
changes at
I
the
guess
board
that's
level
a
too.
discussion.
it's
Right, but then at that point, you would just upload it or
a term that I really like. And it's a term that comes out of the potential FOIA exemptions. It is called the deliberative process. Right? It's the process by which you, wise souls, talk about something and work your way through it, because there's not the expectation that you land at the final answer right away. And you should be able to do that sometimes in a way that is perhaps even sometimes protected. Like, we got to talk about this offline a little bit before we know enough about it to talk it publicly. And that's what there's, that can be, it's a category of FOIA exemption even. No, that those communications are protected as part of a deliberative process. That concept applies a little bit, I think, to committee of the whole. Well, it's certainly not protected, it's public, it's out there, we're talking about it. But you're still working through things at committee of the whole. You haven't finalized them yet. They're still malleable at that point. And so I agree that I think it's probably more appropriate to post all that information as a comprehensive board packet to the public, once it's worked its way through that deliberative process.
And then I would think a finalized version would be uploaded if something changed during the village board meeting. Because that was my thoughts on it anyway.
Yeah, if something got revised.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah.
You updated it, yes.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just finishing my note.
I have one other question about tracking updates on projects. Shall we continue with just identifying those updates that people wish, actually spelling them out and check them off as they're done? Or we might get a list that's. How do you wish to do that?
Is there a project plan that lists all the projects right now? Or are they just individually in your head?
Individually in the head.
Individually in many heads. Yeah.
Right,
I mean, normally there would be a cohesive, here's the overall project plan and, you know, it'd be one of those are updated by the owner, one of those.
well, for example, so many things come up like gentlemen who spoke tonight. And, you know, there'll be follow-up with Mr. Boggs. That's old business. I don't think we have to track that, so to speak, but there are lots of minor things happen all of the time. And then there are other projects that were developed during budget conversations. And those take a long time to bring to fruition.
Here's my suggestion. Let me as village administrator, I've done this periodically over time and with various levels of support from chief elected official. I think there's significant support now to provide just a routine update. We'll do it every other week.
That makes sense to make us.
And it's just an update
Information.
on progress on any various number of things that we're dealing with. But then you can see those evolve every 2 weeks in those updates. Let's do that first. And if that meets your satisfaction, then that's a good, I'll say, let's keep doing that.
We didn't get an update from Brandon. But that's okay.
Yeah, let's. Any public comment? I don't believe there's any need for executive session. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second,
Motion by trustee Plock, second by trustee Petty. Do we have to still do voice votes and everything, or roll votes and everything? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. We're adjourned. I think that was only with like a remote policy, wasn't it? That every single thing had to be a voice vote?
yeah.
Yeah.
You guys want these.